Welcome back, everyone. This is part 4 of the King's Castle. King James along with Blair Chopin. And as we mentioned at the end of the last segment here, we're going to kind of segue and talk about a big story that's kind of been making headlines as far as football. And that is the fact that Colin Kaepernick stated publicly that he refuses to stand up for the national anthem. Now, if you ask me, there's nothing wrong with showing freedom of expression because that's one of the rights guaranteed in this country. But if you ask me, something like that goes a little bit too far, especially if you're an athlete, because naturally you're used to hearing the national anthem, so you should know that that's the right thing to do because whenever it plays, we in America are here to stand to help support the flag. So I don't really understand what his reasoning is behind this, but what do you make of this?
Well, his reasoning was he thinks America is a country that discriminates against black people and oppresses black people, and he was trying to make a point and draw attention to that. But I'm not going to disagree with the way he feels. I think a lot of people feel that way, and I'm not going to disagree with the right that he had the right to express himself. But I really think that what happens when you sit down during a national anthem, because the reason why I feel like I stand for the national anthem is not because trying to make a statement on my own behalf. It has a lot to do with the military for me, showing respect to those who sacrificed through the military.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
So I understand why people in the military are taking disrespect to it. I totally understand the way they feel. So I feel like Kaepernick was trying to bring attention to his message, and he just really brought more attention to the act than his message because it's just because once he does that, it's automatically going to be assumed that he was disrespecting the military,
right,
which I don't think was his intention.
Right.
So I think he could have, I don't know what he could have done, but I think he could have got his message across more effectively.
Well, I mean, we can't deny that there are other ways to express how someone's feeling, especially in that stature, but at the same time, my stance on it is, yes, you're right. It is a gesture of respect for those who have passed on from the military in order for us to stand up and play for the national anthem. That's a gesture of respect. But my thing is also, he's supposed to be a professional athlete. And in my estimation, a professional athlete is supposed to be a role model in any sport. So therefore, him not standing up for the national anthem, while he does have a right to express his opinion, I have to admit that I personally think that's unprofessional.
I don't know if it's unprofessional, because I could easily see someone saying, like yourself, saying that's a bad precedent to set, someone sitting during the national anthem, and it's impressionable on children and everything. But at the same time, you could argue he's well, I guess in this case, sitting down for something he believes in, and everyone that if he's conveying that message that you should be able to speak your mind about what you're passionate about, then he's actually being a good influence on children. So I could see it from both ways, like I try to do with most things. Like, I understand why people are upset, but I also understand why people are supporting him. Like, if I was in the military, I would be pissed off about this. But if I was also a black person who had experienced years of discrimination and unjust treatment and bad conditions, I would also say, you go on, Colin Kaepernick, bring attention to this.
I want to make one thing perfectly clear since you bring that up. I'm not trying to make excuses for what I'm saying or say that I'm right or that he's right or that I'm right and he's wrong or whatever. What I'm trying to say is I I can kind of see it from both ways because even though I've never served, I do have a history of military personnel in my family.
Right.
On both my parents' sides. So therefore, that action to me is disrespectful.
Right.
And therefore sets a bad example as a role model.
I also understand that, but I also understand how someone could argue that it's a good example that when someone sees an injustice, they should be able to, speak up for it. But
Absolutely.
I think if he wanted to set a better example for that, then he shouldn't have sat down during the national anthem because there's so many emotions surrounding the national anthem and everything that if he just writes a blog post or something, and I have no idea how many people are following him on Twitter or Facebook. I'm assuming quite a bit since he's a professional.
Millions, at least.
Professional quarterback. Then everyone's fine. Some people might get upset because they disagree, but everyone's like, this guy has the right to speak his mind. He's being a good example for people, whatever. But it's just the act of sitting during something like that people associate with military.
And like I said,
and he's also a part of it is he makes $12 million a year.
Like I said, I'm not trying to make excuses for what I'm saying. I'm just trying to say that
everyone knows. You're all right.
That even though he does have a right to speak his mind, it doesn't make any sense to do it that way.
Right. The way I think in his mind it made sense was that it was going to draw a lot of attention. And it did draw a lot of attention, but not for the reasons he wanted it to.
Right.
And I honestly
think... So do you think it'd be fair to say that he was probably also trying to do this for publicity?
I think he was not for its own publicity. I think if you're seeing it from his point of view, that this was going to be such a controversy once someone finally noticed it.
Right.
Because he had done it for 2 games previously.
Right.
Once they finally kind of latched onto it, that they would actually start a discussion about the issue we wanted to discuss, which I think is something that probably needs to be discussed more often. But what it was intended, people lost that message. It got lost in translation and turned this thing about him not respecting the military, because that's what we associate it with. So I don't think he was doing it for attention, because honestly, at this point in his career, he probably doesn't want more of the light shined on him than possible. He's had a pretty bad 2 years playing football. He's kind of overpaid. He might without this, if he doesn't play well in the preseason, his career might be over. Because
you really think so?
He's not playing.
Because I thought he was still pretty young.
He's not playing well, and then whoever signs him, if the 49ers part ways with him, they're gonna label him as a distraction because of this. And you want to the NFL culture is to minimize all distractions.
Right. Well, anyway, but as we said, everyone has a right to say or do what they think in this country, so
that's what's
we're not trying to say that one side is right while the other is wrong. We're just saying we're just giving our opinions based on what we know.
Right. So the whole thing about it is that men died and Colin Kaepernick should respect them, right? And wars and all these terrible things.
Exactly.
But they also died for his right to sit during the national anthem. But since they died for that right, he should stand up and respect them. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Because it's kind of when you reason it all out, it's complicated. But I think he could have done it in a better way. I don't think it's as big of a deal as people are making it out to be.
Indeed.
Because this is kind of turning into a national conversation.
Right.
I saw this blonde girl from
oh no.
beautiful blonde girl. She works for this conservative radio network. And her video, she had a 3-minute rant about this, and she got 200,000 likes on YouTube, and she's just blowing up over her rant about this.
Wow.
So, it's just been this hot button issue. Everyone's talking about it, right?
Huge.
And people are getting very passionate about it. I don't think Colin Kaepernick meant to do anything wrong. I honestly...
Right, I don't think so either. But...
I think, but by his 3rd week of doing this, I really think the 49ers should have done everything they could to, let him know what he was actually doing.
Exactly. Well, when we come back, it'll be time for me and Blair to give you our picks for what's hot for the week, so stay right there.
This has been like a national conversation.